All right, so now we're going to talk about the rest of the home chapter 2 unit, electricity for everyone, lessons 2.4 through 2.7, the remainder of the chapter 2 home unit. So 2.4, who's in control? This is all about switches, introducing what a switch is, how it opens and closes the circuit, the purpose of the switch, and practice with switches and circuit diagrams and how switches can control certain parts of the circuit. So that's important for students to know. They'll see on the MCAS a lot of these diagrams of switches, and you know which switch will allow this light bulb to light up, which switch will do what. So as I mentioned in the previous video, this is where you really want to emphasize circuit symbols and diagrams for students and have them be able to read and interpret and know what these symbols mean. Maybe create flashcards, have them do little flashcards with one another. So really emphasize this at this point and have lots of diagrams for them to look at, create diagrams and have them, figure out what they mean, and even pull maybe some off from the previous MCAS questions and take a look at some of those questions about circuits and switches and see what they're going to be up against when they take that exam at the end of the year. So that's what this is all about. And of course, the activity where they add the switch to the circuit they made, obviously, so they get to understand what a switch does and the hands-on portions of what students really love anyways. So that's what this one's all about. The pacing guide says, you could do more of the ohms and law in this portion of the curriculum, but if you covered that quite a bit in the last lesson, if you took a few days, then students will have a good knowledge of that, and you could solely focus on the diagrams and switches for this lesson. All right, 2.5, cold shower. Now, I mentioned way back when we did home chapter 1 that this formula, you could introduce at that point with some of the supplementary labs where you're heating different materials and talking about specific heat, and then you could actually solve for the heat energy added if you know the mass and look up the specific heat and find how much the temperature changed in the lab. So if you already did that, this should be a review. Otherwise, this kind of comes in way later. Now, they do that on purpose because they like to go back to concepts they learned previously to kind of refreshen the student's memory and help them practice once again. So, but if you did this before, then this will be a nice little review for students on this formula and heat and specific heat and calculating using this heat formula. All right, so hopefully that's a bit of a review. Maybe you introduce that at home chapter 1. If not, you introduce the formula here and give them lots of practice with using this heat formula. All right, now 2.6 and 2.7, pay up and more for your money. All right, so these lessons are basically about like calculating the cost for the electricity, the cost for the power, kilowatt hours, all this stuff. I honestly find my time to be better used by kind of skipping these lessons and covering more of what the active physics curriculum's kind of missing, which is a bit more on static electricity, charges, Coulomb's law, and as well as a little bit more in electromagnetism besides just the hand generator thing students done. So I spend a lot of time supplementing at this part at the end of this electricity unit, going into this part of electricity, static electricity and charges, Coulomb's law, all that stuff. So I'm actually going to show you in the next video some supplementary materials and activities you may wish to do with your students because it's not really covered sufficiently in the active physics curriculum. There's a bit of a reading I'll show you in the next video, very brief, that kind of introduces a little bit, but it's not enough. So you definitely got to do some supplementing, and this is a good part. This is a good time to do it rather than these two lessons. Just do some supplementation of the curriculum. So in the next video, we'll go over those supplements and what you could do.